Probably a lot of you watched my Ima pep talk from last year, from last Simchat Torah, about how I went to the Belzer Shul, and how my baby started crying, so I wasn't able to see the Rebbe dancing with the Torah, and how disappointed I was. So I wanted to give you an update from this year's Simchat Torah. So this year again, I went to Belz in the morning, and by the time I got there, then it was like totally packed. The women's side was totally packed by the windows. I had to see like the Rebbe and to see the men like singing, whatever. So I really thought I wasn't going to be able to see the Rebbe dancing again this year. But something amazing happened after the first hakafa. Then a woman standing in this amazing place by the window. She saw me standing so I couldn't see anything, and she signaled me to come in, and she let me take her place. So I was able to watch an entire hakafa, and I saw the Rebbe. The Rebbe doesn't dance; he just stands there, sort of swaying and holding the Torah underneath his big talus. But just to see that, like to see all like the thousands of Belzer Hasidim, like you see the married men and like the yeshiva students, and seeing like the older men, and just seeing like the excitement, like the intense excitement on their faces, like to see the Rebbe there, and like for me to be watching the Rebbe, it was just like I'm not sure I've ever had like an experience like that, spiritually powerful. It was really phenomenal. And I was just like standing there, and just like I was so squished because all the women were behind me, and sort of pushing me into like it wasn't physically comfortable, but on a spiritual level, like I was just praying that this experience of watching the Rebbe and watching his Hasidim together, that should give me koach for the coming year, to encourage my kids to be learning Torah, and to encourage me to keep on learning Torah, and to keep on encouraging my husband to be learning and to be teaching Torah. So when I was leaving, then I had a brief conversation with some of the Belzer women, with two of the Belzer women. I had to ask them something, and then they asked me where I'd walked from that morning. So I said, well, I walked in from Nachlaot on the other side of the shuk, and they were like, you walked so far? I can't believe you walked so far. So I explained to them. I said, to see what I saw, like to watch that one hakafa, I would have taken a flight in from Australia to see that. It was just mind-blowing. Okay? So I hope next year I'm going to see all you Jewish moms who live in Israel. I hope I'm going to see you also at the Belzer Shul. There's nothing, really nothing like it. It's incredible. So that's Simchat Torah. I read two articles in the Bina magazine Sukkot issue that I thought were really powerful, about women who love the Torah so much, and women who endure a lot of self-sacrifice to enable their husbands to learn Torah, and to encourage their kids to learn Torah. So I wanted to read you from two of these articles. I thought they were really powerful. Okay, so the first one is it's called The Ozeret's Daughter. It was written by Sarah Rivka Cohn. Okay, so Sarah Rivka Cohn, she interviewed a woman whose mother, in the 1950s, she was at the age of 22. She was a widow. She was widowed at the age of 22. She had 4 very small children, and somehow she was totally broken and totally bereft. And she heard about the Marvadik Samim, the magic carpet operation to bring Yemenite Jewry to Israel. So this woman, she got up the courage. She decided, okay, like I want to live in the Holy Land, and she put her kids on. So she and her kids, they got on the plane to come to Israel as part of the magic carpet operation, and they were put in a camp. These camps were called the Mabarot. So they were in a Mabara camp, and this woman, she was a very deeply religious woman, and she was so thrilled to finally be, in the Holy Land, and to be where she had always dreamed of coming to be in the land of Israel. But her kids were going to schools run by the secular authorities. So one day, then her boys came home from school and said, the teacher told us something interesting today. The teacher taught us the land of Israel is so holy that we don't have to keep the mitzvot here. So the mother's getting worried. The next day, then the boys come home and say something even more troubling. I don't know, more troubling. The boys tell their mother, next week the teacher said that we're going to have a party when all of us come to school. When all of us boys come to school, without our kippot and have our payas cut off. So we're going to have a big party, like a big take off the kippas, cut off the payas party. So the mother was just was flipping out, there's no way she was going to allow this to happen. And she was surprised to see that all the other Yemenite, immigrants in the camp, I guess they were sort of overwhelmed by the secular authority, whatever, that they all went along with, that they were all going along with the teacher and cutting off their kids' payas and taking away their kippas, and she knew that this was not for her. So this really heroic woman, she ran away, she did this whole crazy trick to run away from the Mabara, which wasn't easy. It was surrounded by barbed wire. So she figured out this tricky way to run away from the Mabara, so she fled to Jerusalem. She's wandering around, lost. This woman doesn't speak a word of Hebrew. This young Yemenite widow with 4 teensy children is wandering around Jerusalem, and she ends up knocking on a door. She knocks on the first door that she sees a mezuzah, and that door happened to be like in Hebrew you say b'mikrei. Mikrei is rak mi'Hashem. If you say coincidence in Hebrew means if you turn on the letters. Switch on the letters, it means only from God. So basically, by divine providence, this woman ended up knocking on the door of this Yerushalmi couple, who they were the assistants to the Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish was very active in trying to help Yemenite immigrants get away from the secular authorities. Okay, so that they could stay religious. So this Yerushalmi couple happened to be by divine providence were the Chazon Ish's head assistants in trying to save the Yemenite immigrants. Okay, so this is what Sarah Rivka Cohen writes. So basically, this is her mother's. This is the daughter telling her mother's story. This daughter was a young girl at the time telling her mother's story. Okay, it was important for us to stay out of the streets during the daytime for fear that the secular authorities would hunt us down. After 10 days indoors, we were allowed out. The Chazon Ish heard their story, and said that a widow like that should be given an apartment immediately. The next order of business was to see that all the boys were enrolled in appropriate chadarim and yeshivot. Once we were all settled, my mother thanked the Askanim I think is philanthropists, and said the time had come for her to make a living. "And what will you do?" they asked her. "I will wash people's homes," she replied. My mother found a job working for a family whose mother was ill and bedridden. There were 9 children in 2 rooms and no indoor plumbing. My mother's job was to clean the whole house in the 2 hours that all the children were out, including changing the sick woman's linen daily and cleaning the outhouse. The Askanim, the philanthropists who were helping the family, insisted that my mother not degrade herself. But she insisted that no work was too lowly for her. Now listen to this. This is what made me cry. I thought this is so moving. She said, "If this work will enable my children to learn, why is it degrading? It is uplifting. I will know that every tile I scrub, my son will hear a Torah verse one more time, and my other son will learn Mishnayot, and my little one will learn to read. There's nothing degrading about that." There was nothing left to say. Okay, what an amazing lady, right? So basically, so this is the end of the story. The epilogue is, by 1970, my mother had married us all off and saw her sons becoming giants in Torah. One brother was writing Sifrei Halacha, like books of Jewish law. Another was giving shiurim, Torah classes, to hundreds of people every Thursday night. And my youngest brother had become a mashgiach in a small yeshiva in the Negev. Okay, it's not something. So I thought that was a great story. And there's another beautiful story that I loved. This story is written by a woman named Rivki Fish, and she writes a story. Basically, it's a story of a young kollel wife named Dasi, and Dasi she finds out that her youngest sister is going to be getting married in America. So this is a Kollel wife living in Israel. So she decides that she really wants to go and help her mom and help the sister get ready for the wedding. So basically, her husband though is in the middle of his Torah learning zman, in the middle of his yeshiva zman. So the husband asks the Rosh Yeshiva, and the Rosh Yeshiva says, well, your wife can go early. She can go, as early as she wants. But you can go to the wedding. You'll fly in the day before the wedding, so that you will miss as little Torah learning as possible. So imagine like this young mother with these very, very small children, flying with 3 teensy children, and from the article it sounds like they're quite mischievous, and it's really, really not so easy. But this young woman, she's idealistic, and she understands, my husband's doing something really important. My husband is learning Torah, and I really want to encourage that, and this is, whatever. She's very idealistic. So basically on the flight, during the layover of her flight, she runs into this couple. It sounds like they're not Jewish. And they're a very wealthy couple, and they've just come back from a cruise. Okay, their names are Laura and Dan. So I thought this was really beautiful. So they ask her the following: "Tell me, Laura's husband, who had introduced himself as Dan, lowered his voice conspiratorially. You weren't nervous about making this trip alone? You're okay traveling without your husband?" He laughed a small, guilty chuckle. He knew it was none of his business. I smiled and took a deep breath. "My husband," this is Dasi explaining, "my husband is in high-level research. He and his team are in the middle of a discovery that will change the world. I felt the sacrifice of my solo travel with the kids to be worth the long-term benefits of the team's discovery." Respect washed over the elegant couple before me. There was an increased note of awe in Dan's voice. "No kidding. That's amazing. What field of research is he in?" Okay. So then Dasi says to herself, she sort of says in her mind, my husband is in a type of research that holds the world together. He and his chavrusa are moving mountains, preventing sickness, inventing cures, fighting economic collapse. Torah is the heartbeat of the world. The healthier the pulse, the healthier the person. I remember hearing that Reb Chaim of Volozhin would say, if Torah learning would cease for even 1 second, the entire world would be destroyed. His research will not get him public acclaim, but where it really counts, he is changing worlds. Talmidei Chachamim, Torah scholars, are the pilots on whom the world's flight depends. Physically and spiritually, he is inventing Yeshuos, redemptions. I remember hearing in the name of the Chazon Ish that if people would truly toil in Torah, they would prevent others from sinning and from the snare of kfirah, of heresy. But could you ever understand? This research connects my husband, my children, and me to our Creator. This research gives life, meaning, depth, and purpose. But explain this to you, how? So Dasi, what she actually says to them is she says, "Oh," I responded my tone a bit lower than before. "I can't divulge any details. His field must be kept under wraps. My sincerest apologies." Okay, so I just want to bless all of us Jewish moms that this year that we should be able to encourage our kids to love the Torah, encourage our husbands to continue growing in Torah and loving the Torah, and that many years ago, maybe about 20 years ago, I was a student in Neve Yerushalayim, and Rabbi Refson, who's the director of Neve, he said to the students at the end of the year, he said, all of you girls, he said, you have been spending, I don't know, however many hours a day, like all of your days learning Torah. He said, but I want to say something to you for the rest of your lives. I want you to promise me that you will spend 5 minutes a day learning Torah. 5 minutes a day. And for some of you that might sound ridiculously little. For some of you it might sound ridiculously a lot to find that time. But I want to encourage you, Jewish moms, that we should be able to make this time to spend the 5 minutes, away from the diapers, away from the cooking, away from the chores, away from whatever, away from the errands, to spend like 5 minutes, like just coming up and breathing the clean, pure, holy air of Torah, to get recharged, idealistic about what we're really doing, what we're really, really accomplishing. Okay, so I want to bless all of you guys, all of you Jewish moms, with an amazing week and an amazing year full of learning the Torah and loving the Torah and enabling our families to love and grow in Torah as well. And I bless all of you with an amazing weekend and an amazing new year. Shana Tova.